Hey, what's going on? Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for checking out the podcast. If you're listening on audio, we'd love for you to subscribe down below, like the video, leave a comment if you could be so generous. This is a great chat with Doug of Hoobastank and Art of Everclear. We talk all things 90s, 2000s, Summerland. Doug tells a story about how he shared a solar eclipse one time with Britney Spears. Art talks about how Hype Williams, famed director for hip-hop videos back in the 90s, actually almost did an Everclear video. A whole lot of stuff. It's a great chat. I hope you enjoy it. It's a nice trip down memory lane. Without further ado, here's our interview. All right, Art of Everclear, Doug of Hoobastank. Hi, it's Kevin. How many millions of records do you think are in this room right now? I read you have sold over 10 million. The first time
You're allowed to do the Wikipedia yourself, right? You don't need to, there's no fact checking there.
I know, but think about that, right? The first time, you want to know my favorite Art story? You came on an old show I used to do in New York. I had different color hair back then. And
how old were you? Like 12?
No, well, this is what I love about this guy, because he, like, some artists, you know, they come in and they just, it's like a pep rally. Art really makes you earn it when you interview Art. So you come on the show and you performed that day. It was around I think you did like a 20th for Afterglow, and I'm there and I'm so nervous, like my first year in the business, and this is one of my favorite bands of all time, and I'm doing this big, you know, speech to introduce you guys, and I say that the album went double platinum, and Art's behind me going to the main camera going, three times platinum. So you guys, I mean, and then the Sparkle and Fade went
credit
double.
for what it is.
Of course.
I mean, let's just say between our two bands, millions of records.
Millions
sold.
of records. I think it's close
That's
to 20.
fair, right?
I was trying to big you up. Did you guys get signed as individuals?
We didn't, no, I mean, no, we got signed as as individuals. We didn't put Hoobastank as a name.
How does that like affect the politics of a band? Because I've never heard of that before.
No, it wasn't 4 separate contracts.
Oh, okay.
No, it was just a contract with our names on it, not a band name.
Oh.
You didn't have a band name?
No, we did. We were Hoobastank from 94 to 2000.
What were you going to rename it as?
I don't
Do you remember?
know. I don't know, because we're like, shit. We started when we were 17, 18 years old.
Right.
We're playing house parties and cafes and teen centers, and any place that they would let us plug in, right? And the name is this nonsensical high school name we made up. We had 2 saxophones in the band. It was like a combination of like funk and ska and metal, and it was all over the place.
Right.
But it was so much fucking fun, you know? That's all we did. It was just for fun. While people were partying on the weekends, me and my guitar player were in my mom's garage with a Tascam, like trying to record shit, you know? And so we were that band for 6 years, and we had a decent following out here, but we had already regretted naming the band Hoobastank for a while. We're just like, okay, now we just got a record deal. It's our chance to
change the name.
Yeah, change the name. And I think one of the first shows our A&R guy saw us was just at the Whiskey, and it was a great show, and the crowd was chanting the name and everything. And he came back and he's like, "You guys cannot change it." That was probably the biggest input he ever had. Is you guys cannot change the fucking name. He's like, "It's too good. It's you guys." And
so he convinced you. You're A&R guy.
Yes,
A&R
we were a little, yeah.
Right.
It isn't the only time I think that we were convinced by record labels to do things.
You guys were almost Big White Evil, right?
Pure White Evil.
Pure White Evil.
No, that's a fallacy. Actually, Everclear. So the band before Everclear was a really stupid name, and people used to go, "Great band, horrible name." I mean, I'd have girls tell me that. "I'm going to take you home tonight." This is when I was in my early 20s.
But can you say you're in a different band?
But really, that name is horrible. And it was called Colorfinger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is this part of the cowpunk scene?
I don't think that's as bad as Hoobastank, to be honest.
I don't know. It's up there. If you know the story where the word comes from, it's pretty bad.
All right.
But that being said, when I moved to Portland, I was going to do one more band. I had a baby. I had no choice. I was on welfare, which I paid back, by the way, and I was going to do one more band. And if that band didn't work, I was going to probably end up moving to LA and work for a label or management company or do something like that. Be in the business, but not be the guy. But I wanted one more shot at it, and it was either going to be Sparkle or Colorfinger, or excuse me, Sparkle or Everclear. And
I think you made a good choice.
I think it worked.
Yeah,
it worked.
It worked out.
Yeah, and about 2 years in, before we signed, I got a call from the brewery, I forget the name of it. It's outside of St. Louis that actually, or distillery rather, that makes Everclear, the alcohol. And this guy is talking to me, and I later checked him out. He was seriously a senior VP there. And he's like, "Do you boys worship Satan?" I'm like, "No, sir, not at all. I'm a Christian, kind of." But I didn't say kind of. And he's like, "Okay, well, then you guys can use the name." And
Wow.
we got it signed off by them that we could use
That's
the name.
incredible.
That's
but
the only
not for
criteria
anything
that you
other
had to be, had to
other
be
than
met.
music. It's a
Yeah.
true story. Yeah, it's absolute true story.
There's no Hoobastank IPAs out there, so you didn't have that problem, right?
See?
No, nobody,
And if you
nobody asked
worship-
him. Yeah,
See, you can worship Satan all you want.
Yeah.
yeah,
Hail
that's,
Satan.
You're free
I'm
to.
free. That's total freedom.
We were talking about just the power of TV, that Friends finale, that placement. You know, a video like Father of Mine was just on MTV every single day when everybody watched MTV. And I just heard recently that Spike Lee almost did that video.
No, not Spike Lee's. Spike, what was his name?
Jones.
Not Spike Jones. No, it was I forget. There was two guys who were doing like hip hop.
Right.
Two black guys who were doing hip hop.
Was it Hype Williams?
Hype Williams.
Hype Williams.
So Hype Williams almost did it.
Yeah, it was either Hype Williams or Frank. I'm blanking on the guy.
Is it Paul Hunter?
Paul Hunter, thank you. Yeah, the MS catches up with me every now and then. So it was either Paul Hunter or Hype Williams, and they both loved it. I got on phone calls to both of them. Hype couldn't do the video for about 2 months because he was committed, but he wanted to do it. But Paul was like, "I'm all in right now. I'm going to move stuff around. We're going to make this. We're going to do it in the projects where you grew up." He goes, "Write me an idea for the video." And I wrote him basically an idea for the, like a treatment for the video.
Right.
And we got together twice, hammered it out, made the video in like 2 or 3 days. Biggest budget we had ever had up to that point. And it was a big video, right? And, but I didn't even think that was going to be a single.
Which song was this?
Father of Mine.
Got it.
Because it was too personal. It was so personal. I didn't even know if I was going to make the record. And I came into, like, I have an A&R guy who did A&R me a little bit. And that's a different story about Santa Monica. But with Father of Mine, with that album, after we were already successful, I was insufferable, man. You can tell me anything. I was horrible.
Well, you were already hip to the business, so now you're having artistic success.
Well, and I have full artistic control. That was the deal. When we had like labels coming after us, we had 27 labels coming after us, and I go, "I want this much money," and they're like, "That's not much. I want 3 firm records. I'll give you 2 options, but I want 3 firm records." Okay, that's pretty good. I want this. I want tour support. I want this and that. They're like, "Okay," and I go, "Oh yeah, by the way, I want total creative control, and I'm going to produce all the records." And like 2/3 of those, poof.
That
gone.
was the line crossed for them?
Yeah, for most of them. But there was still like 10 labels left. And they're like, "Okay, what else you got?" I'm like, "Okay, now we can talk." And I went with Capitol because Gary Gersh had just gone over there from Geffen.
Right.
And it had, a lot of success, namely with Nirvana, but with some other acts as well. And I felt like they were hungry. And that was a good place to be.
I was reading that "Wonderful" actually was the Columbine High School class graduation song in 2000. Of course, like after the terrible shooting that happened.
I've
there.
never heard that.
Really? Okay.
After
I
the
was wondering if you
shooting.
had any memories of it, but no, I never heard it.
Of the Columbine thing?
No, just of it being the graduation song that they chose for.
No, I didn't know that. I just got chills when you told me that, actually.
Yeah.
No, I remember when that went down.
Yeah.
It was in a theater. I was in a movie theater on tour, like a day off watching a movie, and they told everybody, about
In the theater.
Yeah. I found out Kurt Cobain died. I was in a theater watching a movie, $3 matinee.
Right.
You should maybe stop going to see
Yeah,
movies.
man.
No. Well,
Can you let us know if you go to the movies anytime soon?
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
let's get into some
Yeah.
serious conspiracy theories.
Maybe.
that's why COVID happened, because now we can't go to movies
Yeah, this guy's about to be like, I was at a
All the
movie and they
movies are
shut
on
Wait,
down
I
the
was just going to
country.
say, wait, did you find out things were getting shut down in a movie theater? Now that we're, that's 3. then.
So you're going to put the focus of the universe is on art, going to a movie theater.
We're living in your simulation, Art.
I've heard a lot worse
Yeah?
explanations for life. So okay, whatever.
Take it. Yeah.
And "Wonderful" was a song that I wrote last minute, really right before we mixed the record. I wrote that song and I gave it to
That's
my.
really last minute.
Huh?
That's really last minute.
It's. I mean, we were still in the studio. We were we were tour record. You know the drill. Tour record. Off for 2 weeks in Hawaii with your family. Tour record. And the whole time people.
Why is it always often? I was like, that sounds almost too specific. I'm like,
because
tour record in Hawaii with your family when they say, you got to write one more song, go back into the studio.
Because it's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's 5-hour flight.
Yeah.
It's right there. And if you're a West Coast guy, and we are, that's where you go.
Totally.
You don't go to the Virgin Islands. You don't go to Jamaica. I've been to those places, but Hawaii's easy.
Yeah.
It's right there. And, you get in the cycle of record, tour. And I wrote this song. I was going through a divorce with my eldest daughter, and I was starting to see things in her that I remembered in me from when I went through my parents' divorce. And it was pretty devastating for me. And that's where that song came from, writing from her point of view, And it was funny because I told my I had the music for about a couple of weeks that I had written the song and played it for the guys I worked with and guys in the band. And this guy who was a friend of mine who was like a co-producer and did a lot of the Pro Tools stuff, was like, wow, what's the name of this song? I go, Wonderful. And he's like, finally, you've written a positive, uplifting, happy song
that our presses play.
Yes.
Yeah. And then,
sure, here.
No, I played it for him. Yeah. I played it for him. And he sat there and looked at it and he's smiling at first and then he's like, and then, I don't know if I could say it, or you could bleep it out, but then he's like, I finished the song. I go, so what do you think? You still excited about the song? He goes, that's a great song. Fuck you. And he walks away. But it is what it is, man.
One number 6 on the pop charts, man.
Yeah. I try to write happy songs.
Yeah.
I try. I did. I wrote AM Radio. I thought that was a happy song.
That is a nice song.
Whatever. It's fun.
Doug, you got to tell me the story of you and Britney Spears in a solar eclipse.
Oh, shit. Really?
It's not even a story. How does that even come up somewhere? I live in Agora, which is about 45 minutes from here. The neighboring communities are Calabasas and stuff like that. So there's a lot of like celebrities and musicians and people who live out there. I go to like a mom and pop gym. I've been there forever. I don't know. When was the last like full solar eclipse? I don't even remember.
Gotta look it up.
Like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
It was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, so somewhat recently.
Yeah. I was like, how does that even, why is that? I feel like I just told my wife that or something,
There was a lunar eclipse about a month ago.
No, it was a
right?
solar eclipse. I remember I come out of the gym and somebody, I forget, it might have been even my kid from school. Hey, these are some glasses that you could wear because you obviously know it's coming. And so I'm out there in the parking lot just kind of like, oh yeah, like that. And then I feel like, can I borrow those? It was Britney Spears. Not much of a story. It's kind of even silly,
That's it. You don't think that's an interesting story?
I think it's cute.
It's thank you.
Is that what's
yeah?
cute?
I was like something I told my wife. Like, hey, I was watching. Did you see the clips? No. Yeah, you know who borrowed my glasses or something? Britney Spears. She goes to the gym too. That's cool.
So is that not your most interesting celebrity?
It is. I'm sorry.
Is it? No, is it? I mean, no, because sometimes when you cross over, you have the pop crossover moment. You have these weird moments back in the day.
Here's the thing with me. I've been notorious. This has also been a strength of mine and probably a weakness depending on who you ask. I never get too excited about things. I never get too mad or upset about things. Super even keel. Like I said, sometimes it works out great, and sometimes people are like, "Why do you not care?" I'm like, "No, I do care. I show it in different ways,
Yeah.
So my like silly celebrity stories or whatever, which is what I would classify that as, hardly a story. I a lot of times I just forget.
Right.
They don't go into the file in my brain that goes, you should tell somebody this. This is
like
interesting.
this is an important
Yeah,
thing.
this is interesting
Right.
because I don't care. I just don't care.
Right.
Like I ran into XYZ and we did this and whatever. Cool.
Right.
Well, I don't
Another
know.
day at the job.
I don't think it's not that. I don't see it that way. Like this happens to me all the time, so therefore I don't care. I
Yeah.
understand that, something like that happening is kind of unusual.
Mhm.
But on the scale of important things, like
Yeah.
it's nothing. It doesn't
Doesn't
matter.
go in that cabinet.
I agree with that, and I think a lot of times with me, I just don't remember.
Really?
I just don't remember.
But you're a confrontational guy. You ever get into it back in the day with some big name?
No, people would never confront me because I think they were scared of me.
The reputation.
But they would. But like Gavin from Bush would say mean things about me because I think my bass player, who had a drug and alcohol problem at the time and is now clean, that bass player, I think he would say things negative, or someone told a story about something that happened backstage with the banana. We don't want to get into that, but and then they would talk trash about me, and I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I like your band. I don't have a problem with you. I'm not that guy. I don't bad talk people. I refuse to bad talk people. I've got lots of stories about celebrities and famous women I've slept with. You're not going to hear it. I don't talk about it.
Steel trap.
No, man, I don't talk. I wasn't raised that way.
Right.
I don't talk about stuff like that. But then again, a lot of times I don't remember it. Like, we got asked to case in point. I'm 59 years old. One of my favorite bands growing up was, of course, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Zeppelin, bands like that before punk rock happened. And so I'm a huge Stones fan. And we got asked to play a show with the Rolling Stones and Metallica. And
That sounds terrible.
it was awesome. And it didn't pay much. Who cared?
Yeah, who
It was
cares?
2 shows at the PG, and it was what was called PG&A, the PG&E, the baseball park in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
And we played to a half-filled house, which was 32,000 people.
Wow.
And I met Mick, and I'm like, dude, I'm a huge fan. He goes, what are you talking about, man? We've met like 3 times before. Don't you remember? We met this time, and I go, oh, yeah. And then we met this time. I didn't remember meeting Mick Jagger.
How do you not remember meeting Mick Jagger?
And people would think, oh, God, he's so arrogant.
You're so
I'm not arrogant. I'm just not.
Right. There's certain things
I'm not the smartest.
on the day-to-day that
Yeah.
go into, like I said, into that file in your head that goes, you should tell somebody about this.
Right.
And I think maybe for someone like you, whether it's memory or not, or like myself, a certain threshold has to be met. And a lot of it, most people's might be here. And for mine, it's
Right.
like, it's got to be
Yeah.
pretty.
Well, you get so desensitized to it,
Yeah, but I'm not. Yes and no. But I'm not desensitized to meeting Mick Jagger. Right?
Well, you clearly were to some extent.
No,
'Cause you
I
forgot
wasn't.
about
I
it.
just didn't remember. He hit me up.
I'm sorry, Mick.
I'm sorry, Mick. No, Mick's awesome. I met him at the 1998 MTV Music Awards, which was here in LA.
Okay.
And he came up to me in the dark, and I'm like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And then someone was like, comes up and asks for an autograph, and he's like, "Oh, here," and he goes to do it. And I always heard that he didn't do autographs, but he's like, "No, I want his, mine."
Yeah.
And
So Mick Jagger-
I'm like, here, dude.
Did you sign Mick
What's
Jagger?
your name? What's your name? He goes, Mick. I go, and then I see him. Then the lights come on, right? And I see him, or something happens on stage. It's Mick Jagger, and his daughter is a huge fan and wants to meet me.
No.
He's a huge fan of the band, and I meet him and take pictures with him, and totally forgot about it. And then, I don't know, 7 years later, I take a picture with him. We play, and I'm not apathetic about that at all. I'll brag and show you pictures right now of us with the Rolling Stones.
Right.
That's a big deal to me.
Yeah.
Meeting Jimmy Page, meeting Robert Plant, big deal. But I just sometimes don't remember because a lot of it is I'm sure if I was a kid, I would get diagnosed as having ADD or ADHD. They tried to put me on Ritalin when I was a kid. My mom wouldn't let them, but I was always that guy. Am I on the spectrum? I think most people are on the spectrum,
Right.
especially kids 10 to 12 years old. Or at least they act like they're on the spectrum, most of them, So I think a lot of that is that for me, but I have gotten a little I'm a little nonplussed sometimes when it comes to that, because I've come to the belief that glamour isn't a real thing. It's created by publicists.
Yeah.
You know,
Perception.
yeah. I mean, I've been at red carpets where I've seen people who are like famous couples, like screaming at each other, pushing each other, calling each other horrible names, and then they walk out in front of the cameras and they're like,
All
you know,
smiley.
yeah, and it just kind of kills my soul a little bit to be that fake.
Yeah.
I'm not good at
Can't
it.
do it. Doug, you ever think about if you were, you know, let's say you're 15 years old today,
Okay.
if you'd even want to get into music? Because it's just changed so much. I mean, it's like TikTok really is in so many ways the gateway to any sort of
That's
success
really
in music.
strange, isn't that?
Well,
weird?
like Jim Atkins was on the show from Jimmy Eat World,
Okay.
and he's like, dude, and he was kind of vegging out on the idea too. He's like, man, like that's writing jingles, you know? And he's like, I
Right.
don't want to write jingles, and I don't want to, you know. And we were talking in off air in the green room about, you know, people vlogging and being me, you know, and kind of like it's a generational shift. But
Yeah.
do you ever think about that, like the things that attracted
Well,
you?
yeah, my daughter's 10, and if at any point, or my son who's 7, you know, in the next 5 to 10 years, they really started getting into music and wanted to do it. Who am I to say that they can't? You know,
Right.
that would be ridiculous. But the landscape is very different. Yeah, it's night and day. I wouldn't even at this point. I wouldn't even know, like, how do we? You know, I mean, I have my hunches about what we need to do. You know, but I feel like if they asked me, I would be like, okay, almost like you, Art. You got to go to Kinko's and you got to make a shit ton of fucking flyers, and then we're gonna go and cut out cardboard things, and we're gonna duct these things for shows on stop signs by the high school, and then we're gonna put flyers in everybody's lockers, and because that's what we did, and
That's what you did.
yeah, and we handed out demo cassettes that I used to dub. We'd gather as many, you know, of our parents', you know, stereos that had twin cassette things, and we dub these tapes.
Horrible.
Yeah, terrible. Terrible. They're terrible, but we give them away. We outside of shows, we're giving these things away and whiskey. And so I'm like, that's what you should do. But obviously that's not what you should do. There's so many other things you could do now besides that. So I don't even know what I would tell my kid, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, people ask me for advice in the music business now, and I'm like, I really don't understand the music business.
It's totally different.
Yeah, how are you gonna make a living?
I think you should be good at what you do, and you should believe in it, and you should have all these things.
Yeah.
But other than that, the actual like mechanical thing of like putting your music out there is so drastically different. It was for me compared to what you guys were doing, but still similar.
It's in the same ballpark. Yeah.
You guys were like a lot of bands that I know, like the band Live. They all grew up together, you know, in York, Pennsylvania, and just, you know, that's how they knew each other. They started their band in junior high school, and one of it's still called junior high school before it became middle school. That shows you, and it's like it was a different thing, but the similarities are still there. Now in 2021, I mean,
It's like unrecognizable.
I don't really know.
In so many
it's
ways.
like, do bands still tour like that don't have deals with TikTok or YouTube?
Well, now you have people that have #1 records on like the pop charts that are struggling to sell tickets.
Of course they are.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a totally different business. But
That it's always been that's been around for a long time.
Oh,
Like,
really?
MTV bands, like, you know, would sell records, but they couldn't sell tickets. Hip hop for many, many years could sell records, but not sell tickets. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, it was a big thing.
You guys can obviously sell tickets, and I want to talk about Summerland really quick before we let you guys go.
Right before we left.
Anyways, what are you guys doing?
This is, I mean, kind of obviously last year with the pandemic we took off, but this has been going on now since 2012 with you sort of running point there on it. 2012. And what do you make of, both of you guys collectively, what do you make of sort of this immense 90s and early 2000s nostalgia? Is it something from your perspective that has always been around? You know what I mean? Where maybe in the 90s people were nostalgic for the 70s or 60s or whatever. Or is it a fever pitch now that you're even surprised by?
No, I think it's very predictable and cyclical. to be
Really?
honest with you. Yeah. I used to say that, like, writing, I'm like, just give it time, dude. You know, guitars will be back. They just come around. It's going to come around. if you can take a step back, if you know, because you're obviously in it when you're touring and writing and touring and stuff like that. But if you can kind of take a step back and look at it and go, it's just everything, you know, old is new again. And so it doesn't surprise me that, I mean, I don't have my finger on the pulse as much as you might, as far as saying like there's a fever, for like a thirst for that kind of like 90s, 2000 era music. But I noticed, there's definitely a nostalgic, yearning, I guess. I don't know what you call it. A lot of these people from that generation, from my generation and stuff like that, that, want to hear it again, or it's okay to be a fan of those bands of that era again, you know? But I think it's just cyclical, you know, like you said, like bands from the 90s listen to bands from the 70s. Like,
right.
I get it.
That's what we grew up with.
That's what it is. Yeah.
But you know, I agree with Doug for all of that, but I would add to it that when I started this thing, you know, that was the question I got was, so is this just a nostalgia tour? I go, no, it's not a nostalgia tour, but I think nostalgia to a certain extent is healthy and good and comfortable. And seeing people at the shows, you're going to see people at the shows who are going to like break down and cry when they start singing, you know, your hits and stuff like that. That's why it's in the contract that you got to play your hits and they got to sound like your hits.
How do you word that in a contract?
Flat out. Artists must perform.
Do you name the songs?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit, I gotta redo our set list.
Yeah, you do.
Man, that'd be great.
I would
play all
even though I would
Just kidding, yeah.
Doug, I would love to
play
have.
the hits,
I
yeah.
would love to have a house in Agoura Hills, so you don't really need to change.
It's it's a nice area. I don't have the biggest house.
Anyway, doesn't matter. These days, any house.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially
Oh my
here.
God.
Yeah.
That is a great troll job though, when you book somebody with a big catalog and a known catalog, and they show up. Like I remember Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind showed up on the same show you were on back in the day, and we didn't have a contract like that, but there's a little bit of an expectancy. You have very
Right.
big hits.
You know what? Even if it wasn't in the contract, I don't know why I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm going to play a bunch of deep cuts nobody knows. You know,
No,
right?
there are I've had those bands.
I understand
I've had those
the
bands.
urge, because there was a time that we as a band were sick of playing the singles. And
Right.
like, dude, there's a bunch of songs we fucking love that we enjoy playing, even if it's just in a room together.
Wow.
You know, we want to play those, and
Yeah.
and we would do that, and then after a few times we go, you know what? It doesn't. It feels good, but it's not making for a good show.
Yeah.
But, you know.
But my whole idea when I started this tour was to pattern it after, in the late 90s, early 2000s, the radio shows, you know, where you'd have 20
That's smart.
bands.
It's very smart.
You know, and they would come out and play. You play your
Hit after
current
hit
hit,
after hit,
you play
yeah.
some hits, you play a couple fan favorites, go deep on a song, play a new song, boom. Literally, the hook would come out and get you. K-Rock, they had a revolving stage. When you were done, you were done.
Oh,
dude.
Weenie Roast, right?
Yeah. Weenie Roast and Acoustic Christmas, which was never acoustic. And it was just like, it would start revolving and Oasis would be behind you.
Yeah,
Seriously?
yeah, I remember.
Father, whoa. and it was like, but I love the fact that the fans won. You know, they were the winners here,
Right.
because they got to hear all these songs that had brought them into the band in the first place. So there'll be Hoobastank fans, there'll be Everclear fans, there's going to be Living Color fans. Right here, you got Living Color fans.
Living Color fans,
Dude,
yeah.
people, just I got to say this. Every night when they're playing, you're going to see men in their 40s and 50s
Yes.
on the side of the stage playing air guitar to Cult of Personality. I'm going to be doing it for the whole record, because I know that the first two records, every song, every lyric, I know them by heart, right? But I mean, that's how much fun is that? For us as musicians to be
So
able to
cool.
connect, and people out in the crowd to be able to connect on that. That's why I wanted to do this tour. And we've had a blast. And it's been pretty successful that we're still doing it after 8 years.
And then, of course, SummerlineTour.net is where anyone can go that's watching this right now and check it out.
There's two legs of the tour. There's the first leg, which we're about to embark on now.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back in September, October, and do more dates as well, and those are being released as they're confirmed.
That's awesome.
So yeah, go to there, and you can go to any of our websites. I'm sure you guys have all
Yep.
the tour dates and stuff up like that.
It's a nice warm up for the whiskey show in November, dude. That's gonna be awesome.
I know, right?
That's gonna be crazy.
Should be fun.
Yeah.
What's this about whiskey?
Oh,
He's
we
doing
have,
whiskey for the 20th.
November 20th is the exact 20th anniversary date of the release of our debut album. So we're doing a show at the
Are you going to
whiskey
do the whole album?
Yes, doing
Oh,
that. The
how
debut
exciting.
album at
Yeah.
at the
Can I
whiskey.
come?
Absolutely.
No, November 20th.
Yeah, November 20th.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's right before Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
the week of.
Nice little homecoming.
Is it? It's a Saturday, I think.
Is it? I
Yeah,
didn't look.
it's the Saturday before Thanksgiving
Yes.
because I think Thanksgiving's later.
All right.
Yeah, dude, I'll be home.
I
Absolutely.
love that Art knows the day of the week, but doesn't remember meeting Mick Jagger. Oh, yeah, the 20th?
Hey, he's a big
That's a
Thanksgiving
Saturday.
fan. He loves his turkey.
I love my turkey.
Yeah.
So dig this. So in 2019, I got diagnosed in 2016 that I have multiple sclerosis, and I supposedly had it for 20 years and stuff like that. I didn't talk about it till 2019. I put it out there, and these people came to me. This doctor, famous doctor, who's got all these books and stuff like that, and these retreats, and he's like, I can cure your MS, and it'll only cost you $30,000. I'm like, wow, how are you going to do that? And he's like, you go on this diet for 9 months, and all the lesions on your brain and spine will be gone. Okay, so I have to be vegan, hardcore vegan. I mean, it's rough, dude, rough. And I did it for 9 months. And the date that the 9 months was over, I went and got an MRI. My lesions weren't gone. I wasn't cured. And that was lockdown had happened for COVID like 4 days earlier. And I went home, and my wife's like, what do you want for dinner? I go, I want a hamburger. Really bad.
Yes.
Really
Make it a
bad.
double.
And I put on the COVID-15. I've been working it off.
Right.
I've been swimming it off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just stoked for this tour for just the camaraderie that always happens on this tour. I mean, we come into it. Living Color is like, they're older guys, and I think there's going to be a sense of awe from all the other bands.
Sure.
I mean, it's Living Color. And
I don't think it's going to be a sense. Mine's going to be worn right on my face. Like
yeah, I'm going to try and play it cool. But I met Vernon at NAMM and different places and stuff like that. And I'm always like, I really have to work hard not to fanboy, And I'm a guy who's been pretty fairly successful in the business. I still feel like that 24-year-old, 25-year-old kid that I remember a friend of mine who's wasn't really a friend of a friend who's super pretentious and read in zines about Living Color, and we went down and bought the record at Tower Records in San Francisco, right? And we listened to it, and he doesn't like it, and I'm like, I love that. How much you want for that? He's like, oh, I paid $6. I go, I'll give you $5 for it. Brand new cassette, and wore it out, right? Same thing with the Pixies. He bought the Pixies Surfer Rosa, didn't like it, fell in love with it, bought it, and became one of my favorite bands. And I think it's fair to say alternative music wouldn't sound the same if it wasn't for the Pixies.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, Nirvana would tell you that for sure.
Totally.
But I just like, that excitement.
Well, it's contagious. Like the fans will feel it too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, people are there because they want to be there. Right now, what we're running up against in some markets, like Boston, I'd say about 2/3 of the markets, ticket sales are pretty good. And then 1/3 of the markets, we're working on it. Or I'm putting more money into, putting ads out there and social media stuff to get the sales up, because it's just like, a lot of people are afraid of COVID.
Yeah.
And a lot of states are just opening up.
Yeah.
Massachusetts just started letting bands, like we only booked that gig like a little over a month ago, right?
Yeah.
And the other shows have been on sale for a month already. And it was just like, because Live Nation was like, nope, no shows till September, no shows till September. Right. And then people's up, the mucky mucks in the business, in the company were like, no, you should open up. You should sell tickets. And then they're like, we got to sell tickets, we got to have shows. And we're like, hi,
We're ready.
do us.
Awesome.
So
All right, Doug. Thanks for coming by, dude.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
thanks for having me, man.
This is
Appreciate
awesome.
it.